DriveTime Exchange. As rubber hits the road, hard talk meets great music. Monday to Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on NETT Radio, taking you above and beyond. Full discussion.
Today, when I look around in the world, what do I see? I see footprints that man have left on the sand while walking through times. I see fruits of our ambitions, figments of our imaginations, and I ask myself, when will it end? When will it end? Universally, this land is not bountiful as it was, simply because in his quest for success, nothing stands in man's way. All rivers run dry. Soon the birds will fly, the mountains will be no longer high. And when I really think of it, I just wonder why, oh why. I see charity deplored, equal rights totally ignored, wisdom and ingenuity working in accord, simply to afford such inventions as thermonuclear warfare and environmental warfare. And I wonder now, where do we go from here? Prophets everywhere gaze upon the horizon and declare that judgment will come as the savage hands of unscrupulous men defile everything pass by. Time is running out as we eat and drink, species at the brink of being extinct. And I think no one can deny progress is high, real high.
All right, everybody, and of course, this is where we welcome you inside of the DriveTime Exchange. It's happening right here on the Era TT Radio. It's the best place to be at this time of the day. We're happy to have you. Of course, we are marshaled by none other than our journalist extraordinaire inside of this session, Tony Fraser. So, Mr. Fraser, good day to you.
Good day to you, Sir Charles. How was life with you today?
Life is pretty all right, you know. It has its ups and downs like everything else, but it's good.
I see your song, predicting all kind the calypso.
Yes, yes.
Predicting all kinds of things into the future. That was back in the 1980s. Some of the things, I wonder if the subject we're going to talk about today will assist us in any way. AI, artificial intelligence.
I'm sure it will. I am sure it will. That is why I chose this song.
Okay, wonderful. So, yes, we're going to tackle that subject, a subject which has been going around for a few years now. I don't know, talking about the Trinidad and Tobago experience, I don't know if it is grounded fully in the environment. The two persons that we have to talk with us today will tell us all about that.
Yeah.
I know.
Tony, let me just interrupt you one minute, and because Mark is also there in the waiting room. But Mark, you need to go back out and engage your microphone and your camera, so that we will be able to pick you up. Or if your microphone is not engaged, the software will not let you in the studio. So if you're hearing us, you need to go back out and engage your microphone and your camera. Right? I think he hit. So he went back out. Good.
Okay. Some AI might help in the circumstances, right?
It has already started.
Yeah, so we have two persons with us, Nigel Romano, who is a business executive. He has been many things. I think he was chairman of one of the banks, one of the international banks recently. Were you also chairman of the flour mills?
Chairman of National Flour Mills,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I was the managing director of JMMB Bank.
right.
But I spent most of my career with Citibank,
Mhm.
most of that in Asia. So
Right. I remember when you left, it was around that time, what it was, 2008, 2010,
no,
when there was that.
that was actually the second stint. I left first time in 1996 to go to Indonesia.
Okay. And
Um,
there
and,
is Mark.
and there is Mark.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed, indeed.
All right. And so we're a little chit chatting here about Nigel's career. And yeah, I remember that period in the difficulties, the financial difficulties that were going
Mhm.
around the world at that point in time. And you
Yeah.
were somewhere in Asia, as you said,
Yep.
doing all kinds of things. So Nigel is back with us now. So he has brought a lot of the experiences that he has had in some big financial areas. We had a young man yesterday who um, who really confused us a little bit, informed us plenty. Somebody who worked on Wall Street for a number of years talked about the hassle of working on Wall Street, the financial capital of the US. I don't know if it's still the capital of the world, but that's another story. And my good friend and colleague Mark Lyndersay, who knows far more about these things than ordinary journalists like myself. Mark is, of course, a journalist and a photographer, all wrapped up in one, and an AI user. I don't know, you'll tell us if he's an AI specialist. So, Mark, welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. And no, I'm an AI user, and
Yeah.
I think you have to have a lot of grandchild to describe yourself as an AI specialist in town.
Agreed,
Yeah.
100%.
Mark, I like the name calling Anthony. The last person who called me that was my mother, many
Sorry.
years ago. I suppose she gave me the name. Everybody else says Tony. Sometimes I remember hearing it on somebody else. Who the hell is that they're asking about? But anyhow, all of that is a little bit of fluff to start us off, to give some kind of understanding. My objective really is for you fellows to give our viewers and our listeners an appreciation of this new technology, and how does it work, what's it all about, and how can we use it in our lives, what are the challenges, what are the ethics about it, etc., etc. So let me get some definitions from both of you. Nigel was here first, so go ahead, Nigel. What is this thing called artificial intelligence?
Well, I think the word that is used is large language models, and they are basically, I suppose, computational
Sorry,
tools.
sorry, sorry, Nigel. I don't know if that helps our listeners. Large. What did you
Lang-
say?
Large LLMs, large language models. They're
What is
basically,
that?
well, I am not an expert like Mark. I am a user.
There we are.
Right? And I mean, I use it extensively. I actually have a subscription to a platform called Perplexity that uses ChatGPT 4 and the Chinese model as well. But it's basically software that I suppose takes instructions, does research, and provides you with a response.
Okay.
And an article I read recently called AI 2027, and the headline author there was a guy named Daniel Kokotajlo. Daniel is now the executive director at the AI Futures Project, but he was a governance researcher at OpenAI. And what he said is that hopefully, and he uses the word hopefully very deliberately. He said, hopefully, whatever AI you're using will be helpful, i.e., it will obey instructions, it will be harmless, i.e., it will refuse to help with scams, bomb making, and other dangerous activities. And third, it will be honest. It will resist the temptation to get better ratings from gullible humans by hallucinating citations or faking task completion. I am quoting from the article.
All right.
So,
I wonder.
go ahead.
Sorry, I wonder if you can give our listeners, our viewers, a website to find that, because since we are, attempting to spread information around,
Yes,
anything that you fellows have that somebody could look and learn from will be helpful. Okay, so I get from you, Nigel. It's a software package which can assist in searching, which can assist in explaining, which
mhm.
can assist in perhaps quantifying and summarizing things easily. Is that a good enough kind of description of what you've said?
That's correct. And the website is AI lowercase dash 2027.com for your listeners.
Okay, great. Mark, your definition of what AI is all about and how it can be used and so on.
Okay, let me open by citing an AI explanation of AI,
Mhm.
which comes from Google's Gemini, which is what you will find if you search for artificial intelligence on Google right now. And it states that artificial intelligence refers to the ability of computer systems to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as learning, problem solving, and decision making. It encompasses a wide range of technologies and techniques, with machine learning and deep learning being prominent examples. So let me use that as a jump off point to
Mhm.
say that AI is not a thing.
Mhm.
It is a multiplicity of things and a multiplicity of technologies that are harnessed to the idea of machine serving man.
Mhm.
But we've basically already seen that that can go dramatically awry.
Mhm.
Um, Again, there's an old saying in technology, GIGO, GIGO, which is garbage in,
Garbage.
garbage out.
Mhm.
And any major artificial intelligence, what Nigel is referring to as the large language model, is basically a compilation of the enormity of information that that particular artificial intelligence installation has harvested off of the internet.
Mhm.
So it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't say like this is a good thing or that is a bad thing.
Mhm.
It just pulls it all in and attempts to make sense of it. And sometimes things can go very wrong because
Mhm.
I'm sure, Anthony, you're aware that large portions of the internet are, if not wrong, then at least malevolent.
Mhm.
And all of that taints the output that you get. So as
Mhm.
a result, people have to ride herd on these things. They have to understand what they're seeing, where it's coming from, and attempt to sift, as the old people would say, sense from nonsense.
Yep.
So, Mark,
So,
let me
so
ask you.
one of the points, Tony, if I may,
Mhm.
that Mark made is that this is not ordinary software. These are models that are based on huge networks. And the point that Kokotajlo made is that their behaviors are learned from a broad range of data. They are not programmed explicitly. And he describes how they are trained because they are trained. It's more like training a dog than giving specific instructions.
Mhm.
So
So let me
therein lies the problem that Mark referred to, that things can go wrong.
mhm. Let me ask both of you.
Mhm.
Where does the intelligence come from to be inserted? And I'm using language that I'm too sure that I know about. Um, to be inserted into the software. The software has to be created. That's an obvious kind of thing. Where does the intelligence has to be put into it? Where is that intelligence retrieved from?
Mark, you want to try first?
Well, all right. What we're talking about here is not, in fact, intelligence in terms of the way we have come to understand that word applied to human learning and reapplication of that knowledge. We're talking about a vast subset of information. And we're talking about machines that correlate this information using mathematical algorithms that say, okay, this should go with that, and so on. It took a long time to get to this point. I mean, just being able to identify what is in a picture was a process that took almost 15 years because a computer with a camera had difficulty telling a cat from a dog. So that process of teaching it how to identify the things that the markers, let's say, that we understand as people coming up in the world and having sensory experiences, all of it had to be taught it. But there comes a point where things happen in that vast amount of information and the algorithms that govern it. I remember somewhere I was reading, somebody described it as the liminal space, particularly when it comes to the synthesis of photographs and artwork, in that the way these things are blended and regurgitated takes place using a set of parameters that are beyond human comprehension. So in fact, the way that these large language models process images, for instance, and create new images is not something that I think human beings fully understand at this point. We know how they were programmed to do it. We know where the information comes from, but how it's sort of mixing and matching and applying things and so on is really a kind of deep mathematics that very few people are actually qualified to even talk about.
So I still have the same question. Given all that you've said, and given all of the input and the information and so on, how is it made into something that can do the work that is required of it? Is it that it has to be programmed in a certain kind of way? Help me.
I don't think it's programmed in the traditional sense. Right now, based on what I have read, based on what I have researched, Chat GPT-4, which is maybe the current version of AI, has been training Chat GPT-5 in how to interpret various things, pictures, text, that kind of stuff, and to provide responses. So I am not qualified to really say how the guts of the thing works, but I can tell you it works. What I can also say is that if you are not an expert in the area that you are querying the AI about, you could be misled.
Give an example.
All right. So I asked recently about banks in Trinidad and the size of banks or something like that. And it immediately came up with Bank of Baroda. And Bank of Baroda no longer exists. So in a situation like that, I had to go back and said, hey, you're inaccurate. Please check. In other words, in the same way that you as an editor will check your journalist or the person providing the material and question, if you're using AI, you need to be able to look out for anomalies, to look out for inaccuracies, and send it back to check. I don't know what Mark's experience has been, But those are some of the simple things that can go wrong. And part of the research shows that some of these models give you a quick and dirty answer. In other words, they give a quick response as opposed to really drilling down and doing the research necessary.
Mark, you want to add to that? Take away from it, whatever.
Okay, well, we spent a lot of time talking about how these things go wrong, but let me give you an example of how it can do things that are pretty straightforward, but time-consuming in a very efficient way. One of the first tests that I threw at ChatGPT was to write a selling letter of my services, and I described the services to a client. And what ChatGPT would have done at that point is it would have surveyed thousands, possibly millions of similar documents. It would have looked at commonalities, things that recur most often, things that were described as successful as opposed to things that are described as unsuccessful. And it delivered a perfectly functional document that would have taken me about half an hour to sit down and craft by hand in about 2 minutes. It's tapping from a much deeper well than I have access to. It is gathering information across a far broader schema and platform than I have access to. And therefore, it is capable of doing work in a more efficient and faster way than I am capable of. So I think the challenge that we face at this point with AI is that things that are straightforward to do are likely to be things that are not going to be employable characteristics in the future.
Does that, Mark and Nigel, does that rob the human of initiative? You're saying that this thing will do it in 2 minutes, and it will take you, the individual, a half an hour of the exercise of your brain and your writing skills and all of that. So does this kind of marginalize people in a way, do not allow them to use the real intelligence that they have? I don't know how we compare real and artificial. That's my question to both of you.
No, but I think to Mark's point, for me, I compare it to having an assistant, and I say, look, I like you to do the research for me. I'm looking at given Mark's example, I want to craft a communication for my customers, and here's the kinds of stuff I want to put in it. Do the research for me, come back. For me, that frees me up to do the heavier lifting work, and the AI does it much faster, and it does it has access to a lot more data than my assistant would even have in an organizational setting. The assistant may then go out and use the AI to help him or her with preparing that information for me. So it is very helpful.
Mark, let me ask you this. A student at secondary school, a student at university, you have an exam to write, and you instruct the AI equipment. Remember, I talking foolishness because I really don't know how this thing working. But the point is, I might not have the language, but the focus on not allowing the student to use his intelligence, his research capacity, and all of that. And this is just placed in front of him, just like that. Does real learning sink in those kinds of situations?
Well, the first education a student like that is likely to get is the fact that the teacher, if they have any qualities at all, will smell a rat, run it through an anti-AI checker, and give them a 0.
So
Because
there is
AI
this.
is,
So Mark, there's this thing called an anti-AI checker.
oh yes, multiple points of contact.
Okay,
You
go
feed the
ahead.
document into it.
I am asking the foolish questions for people
Absolutely.
like
There are,
myself. You know,
there are
you
no
fellas
foolish
have to.
questions.
Yeah, it's for fellas like you to ask,
Mhm,
to
mhm.
answer the chance. So yeah, there's this. What do you call it?
Well, I mean, they have multiple services, but they're anti-plagiarism,
Right.
AI. But there are tools you can use that will give you a percentage of AI
Likelihood.
use in any
Yeah.
given document.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's conceivable that the lecturer or teacher, whoever it is, can, I think you said,
Should,
smell a rat or
should,
should smell a rat. So this thing has been done too, quote unquote, efficiently, too quickly, perhaps.
or completely out of sync with the student that I've had in front of my face for an entire term.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Explain that more.
I have been teaching you for the whole term. I have been
Okay.
talking to you for the whole term. I have been hearing you respond to questions or not respond to questions. I have seen what you have written in class or delivered in class prior to this, and suddenly you deliver me this masterwork that is worthy of a PhD. Yes, I'm going to smell a rat. If
Mhm,
you suddenly
mhm.
start writing with absolutely elegant English, and I know that you cannot make subject and verb agree, I'm going to smell a rat.
I'll take
And
it
I
off.
will check your document.
Okay.
In fact, I will tell you, I sometimes, for the fun of it, will run columns um, submitted to newspapers, written by journalists. I will just run them through the AI checker and I'll go like, oh,
Hmm. Hmm.
mm-hmm.
I think one of our colleagues was caught in that. Was it a colleague or a colleague exposed a priest?
Yeah.
That's my memory. Father somebody. I don't remember his name. Yeah, so that is possible. Now let's move hopefully a little bit further forward. How is the technology um, treated with in Trinidad and Tobago? On the Caribbean, perhaps. So when I say treated with, is there a wide, sorry, understanding, appreciation of the technology and what it can do, and what? Well, we'll talk about the shortcomings in a moment, but let's talk about what the technology can be used for.
I would be shocked if there wasn't any young person
Mhm.
older than 9 years old who knew that they could run something through ChatGPT or Google Gemini on their smartphone and find out everything they need to do about the homework they have
Mhm.
without having to crack open a book.
Mhm. Mhm. Is that a good thing?
Again, it's not a great thing because the temptation, of course, is to do as little as possible. But every education process should have some level of oversight, some level of awareness, some level of engagement on the part of the people who are responsible for the student. And that includes parents who are overseeing homework or not overseeing homework, teachers who are receiving things that they know are completely out of sync with anything that the pupil has done in the classroom.
Mhm.
There has been talk of returning to live essays in the classroom,
Mhm. Okay.
that you sit down with a blank
What?
piece of paper and demonstrate what you know.
Hmm. Hmm. And is that because there has been fraudulent usage of the AI facility?
Let's not call it fraudulent, let's call it excessive.
Yeah.
Okay. Nigel,
No, because I mean,
take an office scene. You're an executive in an office and so on.
uh-huh.
How is it utilized in offices that you have worked in?
Well, the point is that, as I said, I use it, and a lot of people are using it now. When I get it, for me, that's my first draft. and then I do my editing and my thing. And I always, if I'm going to share it, I am going to share it with the references so that whoever I am sharing it with, because there are sometimes 50, 60, 80 references attached to the research. So the point is that in the workplace, you're dealing with people who hopefully know what they're about and are using it to do the heavy lifting, the research and the groundwork. And as I said, you don't just get it and send it. You have it, you read it, you edit it, you query it, you check on the sources to make sure that they are credible sources, and then or the sources exist. So there are examples, and I mentioned earlier on that you don't want your AI hallucinating, and that is a very real risk. And
Okay,
there are
explain to our
so
listeners
there are
what you mean by
examples
this
where
hallucinating
a
business.
lawyer went to AI. He got the brief, and the AI added references to cases. About a few of those cases never happened. The AI created the cases. So you have to be very, very careful about how you're going to use the AI.
Is
One
that
of
a
the
fault
cases,
in the technology?
well, as I said, remember what I said when I started, when I quoted from the article. These things are not specifically programmed; they are trained, and in some cases, they want to please, just like any human or human intelligence wants to please. They want to please whoever is asking them the question. So in this case, they created cases that didn't exist, that sounded credible, but on reflection and on research, never happened. So again, that's a limitation that you need to be aware of. And that's
There
what you
is,
need to do.
Nigel, there is some humanities here, because that's a very human thing that people do
Yeah,
in circumstances. They fudge, they create,
yeah.
and so on.
But again, they're working again to improve on this and to reduce the incidence of these hallucinations.
I'm going to ask both of you in a moment. Tell our listeners, our viewers, something of where this thing has come from. How was it fashioned and created, and so on. But Mark, you want to respond to what Nigel has just said there?
Well, I will say that in the particular case that he referenced, the presiding justices rendered a most excellent buff. They advised the lawyer that their intelligence was not artificial.
Okay.
I thought,
Yeah.
oh dear, I would have gone home and I would have wept. Yeah.
So where has this thing come from, and for what purposes? Although the purposes may seem obvious given what you fellows have said already, but give us a sense. But not simply where it evolved from, but what triggered it. Was it a requirement for speed, for easing the human mind of so much work, etc., etc.? You tell me.
Mark, you go first.
The man is asking why artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
and I think we've always known that the whole idea of computing was to act as an extension of the human mind. I mean, the most basic computing function is the calculator, to tabulate numbers in a way that a human being would find more difficult to do with a piece of paper. So the calculator was an extension of that capacity. It sped up the ability of people to do complex calculations with greater speed and so on. And that is the genesis, I think, of almost any significant computer advancement, which is the idea that this tool should enhance or accelerate my human capacity in some tangible way. So it isn't like one thing where people decided that they were going to make Skynet overnight. It was a slow, steady process of, okay, if we can do this, this would be better. I mean, you go back to something like Microsoft's infamous Clippy. What was Clippy but a tool to listen to what people were trying to do and say, can I help you do this? Clippy was a disaster. It was a terrible tool. But it came out of the same idea that if we can see what the user is doing or trying to do and offer help, then we can make their abilities to function more seamless and more efficient.
Yeah.
So
Nigel?
Snippy would be what the parent of Alexa and these kinds of things today, who are constantly listening to you and trying to help, in some cases inappropriately. But I mean, as you were talking, I went into Perplexity and asked the question, and it said the first neural network in the modern era was in 1951, a neural network by Minsky and Edmonds. The point is, as Mark said, these are ways to help us be more productive. But and I go back to the point made, it should be a tool to help, not a substitute, or we should not be using it as a substitute for doing the work. It should be an assistant as opposed to, I suppose, a replacement. Having said that, it is developing so fast that today it's already replacing programmers, junior programmers. And places like Microsoft and all the big technology companies are using AI for what they would have been paying a young mathematician for 10 years ago. I think that's very clear. Today, Amazon announced that they were laying off a whole set of people because the cost of running these computers is growing exponentially. Other companies are investing in nuclear power plants to run their data centers where these large language models reside. So I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. All right. You touched on something that I want you fellas to explore. And just to indicate our listeners and our viewers, we are talking about artificial intelligence. And we have two persons who define themselves as users of the technology. And you have somebody asking the question who is completely bewildered by anything to do with this technology. He simply doesn't know what he's talking about. But I want to go back to something that both of you touched on. Back in what, the 1930s, the 1940s, as technology in a very basic form started evolving in factories and on work sites like that, the fear came about replacement of people and jobs. And there was strikes and riots and so on. I'm sure you know the whole story of that. About these computers, as basic as they were taking away jobs from people, and people got into real panic as to the machines are working everywhere, and we outside on our tails don't have a job to feed our families. One of you has just said that some company has let off a number of workers. Is that a fear that is real for the complete institutionalize the AI technology in all kinds of ways?
Want to take it first, Mark?
Well, personally, I think that Amazon is laying off people to pay for Mr. Bezos' wedding. But that's just me. I don't know that we should be worried about AI becoming institutionalized because that horse has long left the stable. Um, I think it is becoming so pervasive that it's starting only now to be felt at lower clerical levels where um, the work simply isn't required anymore. I mean, artificial intelligence is an automated phone system. It's been programmed to do what a telephone operator would have done. Um, it's crude. Even the best ones are pretty crude, but it gets the thing done without the incurring of a salary by a fallible person. And that is a huge advantage to any businessman who is making an investment. Is I pay up front, I get this machine to do this thing that I would have to depend on a cadre of people to do in a particular kind of time frame. So there is that. That is just a cold hard reality. I think you had asked about the impact of that being, of course, that certain kinds of low-level work will disappear. But that means that we need to be crafting an education that prepares people to do higher level work or work which cannot be done by machines. And there are certain kinds of work that it is impractical to deploy machines to do, that we need to stop thinking of as menial work and start thinking about that kind of work as perceptual work. It will be some time before a machine can walk through a field of scythe and get a sense of how the scythe growing and what we should be doing and why the leaves brown. It may come one day, but for now, there is a perceptual quality that a high-grade farmer can do where he can just look at a field of scythe and say, here what we had to do today. This is what we had to do in order to preserve that crop and to raise the amount of yield we get in from that. And these are things that we need to stop thinking of as menial work, as dirt work, as yard work. These are things that are absolutely necessary to a functioning society. And what we are being given an opportunity to do is to free human capacity to work more meaningfully in areas where they can make a significant difference. I mean, nobody really wants to sit down for 6 or 7 hours a day writing utterly meaningless memos. There's nobody who graduated from school who said, yes, I want to do that.
The question for Nigel is that when the technologies, and I go back to the 1930s and 40s when technology was coming, crude and so on, but nevertheless entering the workplace, the responses to those fears that it would replace jobs, replace people, etc., reduce people to doing menial kind of stuff and so on, and following the computers. Can it keep us in one position? Let me put the other one first. The response to all of that was that the creation of technology will expand the possibilities for other kind of jobs, more fruitful jobs, more intelligence requiring jobs. Is that likely to happen with some kind of whole-scale implementation of AI?
I see it having a big impact on the way work is done and who does the work. And to Mark's point, and I was thinking about it recently, we have to be looking for jobs that AI will find it very difficult to do in the next, let's say, 20, 30 years. So, I was at a restaurant eating. Can the AI cook? Can the AI serve? I suppose it could, but not right now. I don't want the AI serving me my food. That kind of stuff.
What about cooking? Cooking it is even more frightening.
Well, again, and nursing, caring for somebody, counseling, coaching, those kinds of high touch human kind of endeavors. I don't see AI, and I am not saying never. I don't think I can say that, because the AI may look human. I mean, we have seen enough science fiction movies to understand that. But I think that's where there should be a rising demand that AI would not be able to usurp in the short term. But that for me is, but the other part of the problem is, how do you then support populations that can't work, or whose ability to work have been taken over by computers, by artificial intelligence? For me, that's a question that governments and policymakers have to put their minds around. And the idea of a universal basic income, that kind of stuff, is what comes to mind.
Mark, you want to respond to that?
Well, I mean, beyond the fact that it's really kind of what I've been saying prior to this, is that I had a thought and I've completely lost it.
Okay, well, let me see if I could stimulate another thought. Will the application of the technology create even greater division in the world? We know that the Industrial Revolution did that 500 years ago. There are countries, well, I don't know how good we are in the Caribbean to absorb this thing and forward it, but surely the Caribbean countries are considered middle-income countries, middle technology users, etc., etc. But there are countries in all kinds of ways, and I don't want to call a continent to stigmatize it, but there are countries where the technology, even technology of 50 years ago, has not reached them yet. AI is going to put them in a further place behind the behind. How is that going to impact on those countries?
One of the things that I think a lot of countries that have been find themselves in that position are doing is to simply leapfrog. To say, okay, we never had phone lines, we never had overhead cable, we're just going to jump directly to wireless 5G. We're going to go directly to educating our children on the thing that is important today. I think one of the places that we should really take example from are countries like Taiwan and Malaysia, which found themselves in a difficult economic situation and decided, okay, we don't have the natural resources to do these things that our peers are doing, but we do have human resource, we do have a certain kind of capacity, and we are going to develop towards that and leapfrog all those generations of development that other countries would have taken to get to the points they are now, and just simply leap ahead to that point. I mean, take Korea, North Korea. Sorry, South Korea.
South Korea.
Yeah. Take the Koreas and look at the difference between a country that is basically being held back by a family despotic regime and a country that produces Squid Game and has a huge entertainment business because they simply decided, okay, fine, we can do this. We have a history of a culture and a way of doing things, and began generating enormous amounts of entertainment. When Netflix went into South Korea. They were like, okay, we have all this stuff. And South Korea said, oh, that's nice. You have a platform. We're going to start generating stuff for your platform. And then that platform stuff started pushing out of Korea into the wider Netflix network.
Yeah.
So, riding
Go
the
ahead.
tech.
Yeah. So Nigel, I understand what Mark is saying, that countries that are behind will have to drive themselves into the future. But the reality is that there are so many countries, so many huge parts of the world that are so far back. We're not talking for those purposes. We're not talking about AI. We're talking about some ordinary computer from 50 years ago. And the difficulty with that is that we're going to live in an even world, even more so. How do we solve that problem?
No, as I said before, we have to find some sort of safety net, and governments will have hopefully to agree that there is a base level of existence that will be funded by the whole. I don't know how that would be accepted or implemented. It's not going to be easy, but the alternative is to have a very big divide between the people who are gainfully employed and the people who are left on the sidelines, and it could become a social problem.
Yeah. I have a question on that, but I think we need to break now, go to a commercial break, go to Sir Charles advertising the station. As you may or may not know, it's a new station, completely online, and we are seeking to create some paths outside there for greater intelligence, human intelligence. I don't know about the artificial kind. So we want to give our listeners and viewers an appreciation of the station and how they can get onto it and so on. In the meantime, that I go for a glass of water.
All right, good.
Chalu.
I see fruits of our ambitions, segments of our imaginations. And I ask myself, when will it end? When will it end? It is plain to see, universally this land is not bountiful as it was, simply because.
Wake up with the Net Radio Breakfast Show. Rise and shine with Wendell Stevens and Richard Raghubarsing, weekdays from 6 o'clock to 9 a.m. Start your day feeling good, energized, and informed as we tackle the biggest issues of the day, get you where you need to be on time, and keep you in the know about everything that matters. We bring you insightful discussions, expert analysis, and the latest updates so you're always ahead of the curve. Mornings matter. Your voice matters. And it all starts right here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio. The Net Radio Breakfast Show, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. Wake up informed and stay ahead.
Looking for trusted, affordable security and property services? Horatio Services has you covered across Trinidad and Tobago. We offer battle security, K9 patrols, 24/7 protection, and all sorts of private investigations, discreet, professional, and effective. But that's not all. We also provide construction. From building to renovation, we bring your vision to life. Landscaping, keep your outdoors looking sharp and inviting. Maintenance, repairs, upkeep, and everything in between. At Horatio Services, you get professionalism, reliability, and personal care. Whether it's safety or property support you need, visit us at Marino Street, Arima, or call 388-7070. Today, Horatio Services, protection, precision, peace of mind.
Advertise with us on New Era TT Radio, the fastest growing streaming platform for talk in Trinidad and Tobago. Audio and video ads welcome. Elevate your brand with us. Connect with us at newerattradio@yahoo.com or call us at 299-5156. Now, what are you waiting for?
Bringing you full discussions, the hottest topics, and some tracks to keep you moving. The Drive Time Exchange on Net Radio, taking you above and beyond.
Science will produce bread out of stone and then create the first human clone. Technology will reach a new high. Buses and cars will fly in the sky. Trinidad will make a nuclear bomb. In time to come. In time to come. In time to come. Don't doubt that. Glenn, tell them. Papa lo polo, papa la la. Pala balo bo, pala lele. Moving from the dark ages, man has progressed in stages. Through the stone and iron age, till we turn another page. And we saw the adventures of Alexander, waging war in his obsession for conquest. Inventions like the chariot and the saber, the weapons that put Europe under duress. Mankind achievements sometimes were great, and his glorious moments mark the passage of time. But wait, in time to come, mankind will have a colony on the moon. In time to come, this calypso will be a top 40 tune. In time to come, scientists will synthesize silver and gold. In time to come, people will have real sex by remote control. The first dead man will come back alive. Cancer and AIDS victims will survive. Babies will born with mustache and beard. Penis and kidneys will be repaired. The government will ban cigarette. Breakfast and lunch will be a tablet. A 2-year-old will split the atom. In time to come.
In time to come. Well, Crazy may not have been talking AI at that point in time, but he was talking about things of the past. And of course, you know, that is why we are here, because we talk about terrestrial radio, and then we talk about, where radio is heading. And of course, it is New Era TT Radio. We are streaming all around the globe. Any way you want us, you can get us. All you have to do is go to newerattradio.com. You get us in your browser at New Era TT Radio, and you can get us on all of your smart devices, all your Alexa and Google devices, your smart TVs. You can get us in all of those areas now. So just put us in your browser and look for New Era TT Radio, and of course you will get us. Yeah. We are back, Tony.
Sir Charles, you know, as you talk about that, when I started off many years ago in this business, I worked with a few radio stations in my time. Radio Trinidad, for instance, we had 4 big studios there. We had a library, we had an engineering department. People were doing stuff all the time. Now, Charles, start a radio station with a computer in front of him. Am I right, Charlo?
Yes, so your home is your studio now.
Yeah. So, I don't have to move from here. That we do these programs on a daily basis and so on. So,
and it saves you a whole lot of money too, because now you don't have to pay transportation. You have to look for gas. You know, you have to look for clothes. So we save you money.
On the negative side of that, of course, at Radio Trinidad and 610 Radio, where I worked, and of course internationally with stations like the BBC, music creators, there was a sheet that the announcer had to tick off 10 cents or 15 cents or whatever, the creator of the music got. I don't know that they can get anything now, but that's all part of moving forward. And I don't know, gentleman was crazy, really crazy, or there's some kind of substance in what he's saying.
I think there's
Nigel?
a lot of substance in what he's saying. We don't know where it's going. I mean, it's for me it is we live in an exciting era. We were talking earlier, and somebody was talking about you have to wait for the facts to dry. A lot a lot of youngsters don't even know what a fax is. I mean, when I grew up, when I started my career, there were no cell phones, no computers. The first computer I used in 1984, and the first computer I ever used was a Macintosh, and it was 125K. I mean, now my watch has more power than the Macintosh I was using, and it was this big, you know. But I mean, but we live in exciting times, and for me, I love it.
Yeah. Mark?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you worked in the newsroom where we had these big typewriters and the keys were deep and they were kind of close together. And when your finger got in between those keys, pain in the cane.
I actually learned to type on one of those computers while I was still at school. Okay. And it used to punch a hole in the paper for every O, any close counter, like an O or a B. And when I would bring my copy into the newspaper, I remember Kitty Annie's on her desk saying, I have your copy here somewhere, and she pick up the paper and she hold it up to the light. Right, that's yours.
Yeah. Different times. But seriously,
different times.
I want to come back to this thing about equity and the possibility of spreading the disparities of the world that we live in now even further. And I think about something like climate change, and this is on the basis of I think it was Nigel who raised the issue about how the advanced technological countries can assist with those that are lagging behind. Because there's a human condition to consider also, and that human consideration has all kinds of implications for war. We're seeing it on a daily basis now. One of the things that is outstanding, the industrial countries, for instance, in the COP conferences, you have, I think they've reached 26 or 27, something like that now. Promises have been made for 10 years back about assisting developing countries and countries even further back than, say, middle-income countries in the Caribbean, with all kinds of forms of assistance which have not been met. And so therefore, this AI, in my thinking, has the potential to widen that divide if there is not the assistance coming from those countries. We used to talk about industrial countries. Now we have to talk about AI countries. If there is not that kind of willing assistance for those countries that are lagging behind, those countries with tens of millions of people in it, what is going to happen? I know I asked you to come and talk about the technology, but you can't talk about the technology without the politics involved and the politics and the economics. Let me tell you something about technology. I was at the Institute of International Relations in the early 80s, and we had somebody from the CARICOM Secretariat, can't remember his name now, talking about technology and doing stuff with us. And then I met Frank Rampasad, and Frank Rampasad was the first person who told me, Tony, if you don't learn this computerization business, you are going to be left way, way, way behind. Now, that was infancy talk about technology. I pick up some of the textbooks now, and they are in the past. This thing has just rushed past everybody. So, fellas like Mark and Nigel, all you good, all you fix up, all you long way ahead of everybody. What's going to happen? I'm talking about inequity now. You take it from there. Either one of you.
All right.
Both of
Well,
you.
you're treating it like a continuum, as if, okay, you're saying that you remember this point, and then all these things happened, and we're at this point. But you shouldn't presume that someone who is confronted with opportunity at this point needs to experience all the phases that led to this point. So, we may look back on floppy disks, and we may look back on mainframe computers, we may look back on all these things as things that led to this point. But the folks who are confronted with the possibilities of technology now have the opportunity to say, okay, that is baked in the past history. How am I going to deal with what is happening now and move forward with what is happening now? So what you mentioned the thing about countries in the world that are likely to be left behind, and I just looked up a few things. Madagascar, 78% poverty rate. Democratic Republic of the Congo, 77%. Malawi, 73%. Burundi, 72%. Nigeria, 70%. Pakistan, 68%. These are countries that are also going to be grappling with this problem. Yes, we should worry about the world, but I think the thing that we need to start with is worrying about the Caribbean region and how we can make use of the assets that we have managed to pull together at this point, and how we can leverage those assets to make for a more effective and efficient future. And I don't know that there's enough conversation about this. There is a United Nations driven policy on AI and a roadmap for its use in the future. But that doesn't get talked about at all, because that's high level policy stuff. But it isn't really. It's stuff that I think everybody in the region who is in a position of making decisions and so on should either be guided by this roadmap or challenging this roadmap in order to make it more relevant to the Caribbean. The UN is great at doing a whole bunch of stuff, but at the end of the day, the implementation is in the countries. It can write all kinds of policy papers and so on and say, well, we should do this and we should do that. But it's down to governments to decide what we're going to do, how are we going to execute on this, and what is the tangible change we're going to register in the country.
No, Mark, I hear all of that, but your last sentence there is a big element of what I'm talking about. How are the industrial countries of the world, how are they going to look on the rest of the world and not leave them behind? And I'm saying the COP conferences is a good example of that. They have made all kinds of pledges, but they have not kept them. And I'm saying that without attempting, I'd be crazy to think that we can leave AI behind. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about attitudes and how we're going to get around to those countries with the technology to assist those countries which are far, far behind. That's what I'm talking about.
One of the things I think that needs to be top of mind is the AI is accessing data, and it's accessing that data from all over. To the extent that the AI is accessing data from the Caribbean, let's say, or from people or companies or institutions in the Caribbean, it should pay for that data. It should not just use that data without compensating the people who have created the data or who are the data. Because as the old saying goes, on Facebook, you are the product. are you being compensated for your contribution? And when we think about how AI is being used, one of the ways to compensate would be to make sure that if you are using my data, if you are sourcing the data from my ecosystem, that you are compensating me for the use of that data. And for me, that's something that we really need to look at.
Mhm. Something like, say, a good example, as you said, that that Guyana, for instance, has preserved its parts of its rainforests
Mhm.
and is selling. Countries are purchasing oxygen
Mhm.
from Guyana.
Carbon
So
credits, yeah.
carbon
Carbon
credits. So
credits.
Mhm.
yeah, so I can take it in that kind of context. So what I'm really hinting at is that, and Mark, I agree fully with you. How do we, and we can move into that stage, how do we in the Caribbean, most of the countries in the regions, sorry, have been identified as middle income countries, and therefore there aren't too many gifts to get from the industrial world, because we have been categorized in a certain kind of way, and therefore they look to Benin and countries in Africa, countries in Asia, which are really at the bottom of it. So how do we in the Caribbean, and there's a critical question that you raised, Mark, how do we in the Caribbean, conscious of all of these inequities all around, but also conscious that we have to get with the technology, otherwise we're going to be in the category of the Benins of this world. How do we start moving forward?
Okay, so one of the things that I think we need to be aware of is that we do have one lever pointer. We may be classified as middle income companies and be passed over for programs that target poverty level nations, but we are small island developing states.
Mhm.
And that's an important lever point because that plays into factors like climate change, where we are on the firing line for even the incremental changes in the sea level. Um, I think that history has taught us that waiting on developed countries to either A, fulfill their promises to do the right thing, or B, reach out to compensate countries that they have tangibly wronged, um, is not a profitable enterprise. Um, we get passed over for everything. We get passed over for reparations. We get passed over. These are things they don't want to have discussions about. They've already strip mined that aspect of our national patrimony, and they have moved on and built their castles and their industrial systems and so on. To some extent, we do benefit sometimes from isolated guilt, where individuals will attempt their own small efforts at reparations and so on. But I think what we really need to be doing is saying, okay, this is who we are, this is what we're capable of, this is what we can do. And for there to be a ministry of AI is both a blessing and a kind of curse. It hobbles us to the idea, I think, of continuously servicing AI as a national agenda item over other things that may also have to be done. But it also raises the profile of a very high profile thing on national concerns. So if there is a development in AI that affects small island development states, we can say, well, what is the Ministry of AI going to do about this, and hold their feet to the fire on that. On the other hand, having a Ministry of AI does not mean that we suddenly abandon all the work that we've been doing for digital transformation, that we abandon all the initiatives that we need to be doing in order to achieve even moderate parity with developed nations. Because these are things that have to be done. And to the extent that there is a consistent, ongoing, apolitical effort to make these things happen, I have not seen any commitment to something of that nature.
And
Mark,
I
so,
don't think we should be
sorry,
waiting.
Nigel. Sorry, Nigel.
That's okay.
Before we
Yeah, go ahead.
come to you, Mark, how do we, or is it, as I said, I don't know, is it inserted into the education system at various levels to any degree at all? The AI I'm talking about as a subject matter.
I know for a fact it is a subject matter among teachers who are grappling with the fact that they are getting this stuff coming at them. I mean, I'm talking about a serious level where there are national level discussions about how to cope with AI. There have been days that have been called out at school for national webinar discussions about AI. So this is a real thing. And we have sensibly understood that if you don't start dealing with it at the level of the individual classroom, we're going to have a major problem. So while there isn't the kind of clear line by line in practice policy that I think we do need to institute in the classroom, I think there is a fairly well instituted effort at the level of the Ministry of Education to engage its teaching cohort in understanding that this is the thing we need to be aware of and this is the thing that we have to manage. So it's never been formally announced, but I know of the webinars, I know of the discussions, and I know that it's something that is on their agenda.
Nigel, in addition to whatever you wanted to say a moment ago, tell us, give us an appreciation of how deeply is it embedded, if at all, in the world of business of today.
So I will quote from an article that I looked at today. A 2024 McKinsey Global Survey found that 9 in 10 employees use generative AI for their work, and 21% of them were heavy users. All right. So for me, the horse or is gone. This horse is out of the
stable,
the barn or the stable. This horse is running. And to Mark's point, whether the teachers like it or not, the students are using AI in many ways, shapes, and forms. And for me, therefore, one needs to put it on the table and have a conversation around how to responsibly use the AI as opposed to no AI, because, as I said, it's gone. So how do I use this tool and prepare my students for a world in which they are going to be employed, hopefully, using AI, as opposed to, I'm afraid of AI. AI is going to stop learning. It may change learning, but I don't think it's going to stop learning. And therefore, how do we harness this tool to increase the capabilities of our students? For me, that's the approach that should be taken.
Right. So look at the world of business now. You're involved in that deeply. How widespread is the use of AI in the business world of Trinidad and Tobago of today?
I believe it's also very, very very pervasive. Some at a very superficial level, some a lot more deeper. As I said, I use it all the time. And I use it to help me in my research and to craft my solutions to various problems. Again, getting the data in which to develop policy or to inform decision making. So for me it's a huge help. And I usually work independently, so that I don't have to go out and get an assistant to do the heavy lifting. I have access to the platforms.
Okay. Mark, with regard to its use in media, a few weeks ago, The Guardian put on its front page a picture, I think it was a picture of two politicians, the picture who the individuals were irrelevant. But they put an AI picture on the front page and boasted a little bit as to how great they were and so on. Take this as I think it was Young and Kamala Prasad Bisasa. But as I said, who the people were really doesn't matter. How is it being used as far as you're aware? Okay, you're not like me. We are not, stable in conventional media on a day-to-day basis. But as far as you're aware, is it being used in media?
I would say that at very core levels, I would expect that it would be widely used. Okay, I'll give you an example. If I am doing reporting on a function, and if I am there, I will record it. If I am not there, I will request a recording of it. And one of the first things I do with that is I strip the audio out of whatever I have, if it's not directly a audio file. I run it through AI transcription software, and I get a text document that I use as the basis for my reporting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there is that. That process of getting an hour and a half of recording into text is about 20 minutes, and that's because it's an online service.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go through the text file. Sometimes I'll listen to the raw recording, I'll make notes, I'll italicize things that I want to come back to and so on. And as a consequence, it does two things. It heightens the accuracy of my reporting. It ensures that what I'm reporting on is not a recollection, but is written from fact. And slowly but surely, people who deal with me are beginning to understand, yeah, he's going to request the recording, he's going to request the recording in the next day. My voice right now is ragged. And one of the things I do is I record my narration of my column. So because my voice is ragged and because I won't be able to do this next week, the next two recordings of my column are going to be done by an AI narration service.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes use it when I have a column that has a lot of quotes, and I'll run the quotes. I'll use the AI narration for the quotes just to get a different sound in the final recording. But I mean, I use this stuff all the time. There are times when I'll be working on a column and I can't find an image that fits what I want to do, and there is an AI image making service that I can go to. And I can say, okay, these are the parameters of what I'd like to see. And it just keeps generating images until I find one that I can work with. And I say, yeah, that's fine. Sometimes I'll do a little additional image editing work on it. And that's it. It's out there. I label it so that the next two narrations will include the line that I am unable to do this recording myself. So you're listening to a narration produced by an AI service. But this AI service is not as good as a professional narrator, certainly not as colloquial as a professional narrator, but honestly, I think in some places they're way better than I am. If I had a choice of listening to me and listening to that artificial intelligence, I would take that any day. But that would be an injustice to my listeners, who I feel need to be made to suffer by my voice.
Yeah. What of the humanity in this thing, man? I mean, I'm not a reporter anymore. That was way back when. But as a reporter, I am in the midst of all of this thing happening. I'm talking to people left, right, and center, getting buffing and so on. And this AI thing, it's kind of dehumanizes me.
No, I think you're allowing yourself to be dehumanized.
No, yeah, I agree with Mark. I think again.
That's so because you two fellas are addicted to this damn thing,
No, I wouldn't say we are addicted. So again, another use of AI is you get on Teams or Zoom or one of these platforms for a board meeting, and the poor corporate secretary does not have to take all the time to record the meeting. The AI will record it for her. give her the transcript, then she produces the minutes and sends it, and we will review, and so there's another way in which the AI is working. I mean, if you look at sport, look at tennis, the line callers are no longer necessary, and in fact, I think I would, if I were a player, I would prefer to have the computer doing the calls than the imperfect.
It takes away the
human eye.
humanity. I used to, incidentally, I used to be a tennis umpire who umpired at Wimbledon. I'm not joking. I umpired at Wimbledon. I have my magazine here from 1980. I'm going to pull it a train, fellas. Wimbledon that I got from Wimbledon.
Yep. Well, I don't think.
No, but seriously, no. Serious. A little joke in between all of that.
No, that's good.
Yeah. I'm saying though that I'm afraid that we lose our humanity in this thing. It's that you touch and you feel, you interact with an individual. You go into the forest somewhere, you meet somebody who is struggling and so on. I mean, how does AI replace that kind of thing?
No,
and let me tell you, I'm a little bit afraid is that there's a new breed of reporters, and I tell them this, so I'm not talking behind their backs. I don't know if they're into AI, but they're into laziness.
They are.
Yeah, they're into serious laziness. And
what do you mean by into laziness?
It's that they don't go out and do the work that is supposed to be done. So that you notice it was compounded during the COVID period. Everybody found an excuse to put up a computer, get somebody on the picture, and you don't interact with the human. You don't see differences, changes of expressions, and so on. That's how I grew up in journalism, I'm afraid. So that's a kind of not remote, but that's a kind of side example that I recognize absolutely the usefulness that AI can be placed in. I have a concern about equity, especially between the developed and the industrial and the developing countries, that the industrial countries have shown no inclination whatsoever to assist. And this AI thing could drive us further apart.
So going back to your example of the lazy journalists. My thing is that there are going to be lazy people in whatever shape or form, whatever industry, whatever profession. But the ones who do the work, who get out there and pound the pavement and are assisted by AI, are going to be the ones who stand out eventually. They are not going to lose their humanity. They are going to use the AI to help them to do their work. And for me, that's the difference. And just to Mark's point, you will be able to tell either using AI or just by the interaction.
Let me give you some examples. When I was news director at TTT, there were some young people, I'm not calling anybody's names, there were some young people on staff there on the computer thing, on the internet access. They were now coming in. And these young people had just graduated 2-3 years from university. So they were hot on the technology of the time, that is. And I continuously had to tell them that the technology will assist you, but real journalism requires the skill, the individual application of knowledge and sensibilities and all of those things. So I have a concern that people will rely on the AI and we will suffer. That's why the AI mark is set to replace a lot of journalists. I can't be frightened for myself because my day is done. but it's set, and it's said to replace a lot of the working journalists, if you can hear what you can hear copied from wherever, then why the hell you have a newsroom with some reporters that you have to pay?
Okay, to speak to that point, Anthony, you see, I'm going back with the Anthony, yeah?
The Anthony,
It's the
the
gray hair,
Anthony
it's the
killing
gray
me,
hair.
boy.
It commands respect, it commands respect.
Okay, boss.
Yeah,
Incidentally, Mark and I worked at a media
ample,
house many years ago.
ample.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
70s, 1970s. We are
PM,
wrong along a hell of a
Yes,
time.
Astrada Costa, if I
Yeah,
remember.
and Alfred
And,
Aguilar, yeah.
and
Yeah,
Alfred,
and Alfred Aguilar, yeah.
Jimmy
Go ahead.
Maynard. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So let me say that one of the things that AI has proven useful for, and those uses have not trickled down to Trinidad because, or the Caribbean really, because we are terrible at generating consistent, efficient data. But in Europe, for instance, there is an enormous thirst for football scores. And AI has been used to generate, based on the scores, analyses of football games on a continuous basis for literally hundreds of leagues. And there are people who follow these leagues and they want to follow their team and they know the team. So AI generates these things based on the scores and the data about the game, because of course the game is, as you know from your tennis experience, mapped digitally as well. So they know it's not just a strike on goal, but a strike on goal from the right wing. So there's all this information that AI can tap into and use to generate information. The thing that I think we need to be aware of is that AI, where there is information available, can be used to do drudgery. So when I gave my example of generating a transcript, I would have had to spend time typing and listening and typing that I can now spend looking at the video, looking at the expression of the person speaking, thinking about what they're saying, because a lot of my work is analysis and contemplation. So I don't just hear what is being said, I consider what is being said and its context relative to other things that have been said or other things that have been promised. So instead of typing an audio that I'm listening to, I can now spend that time thinking, oh, he said that, but that's not what they said last year. And I can, because this has been going on since COVID, go back to my transcript of a meeting from 3 years ago and find exactly what he said. And I don't have to transcribe it because I have the text and I can refer to it. So again, it is a very robust tool. And to my mind, there is a kind of spectrum in which we are existing now. There are people who are dependent on AI, who cannot, and this is a place we don't want to get to, who cannot actually function without the support of the tool. And then there are people who are intimidated by AI, who really want to have nothing to do with it and think that it is the devil's work. We need to find a space in between there where we get past the intimidation but aren't seduced by its capacity to make us dependent. When you can carve a space between those two, then you begin to start becoming and reap the rewards of the kind of productivity it can generate.
But Mark, I am sure, and I agree with you fully about people taking shortcuts and so on. But there is a kind of, I am sure that you can relate to it, a kind of intellectual happiness, a kind of intellectual grounding that you get in reading and analyzing for yourself. And my concern is that lazy people will allow the AI to control themselves and perhaps not experience that wonder of reading and understanding and appreciating and doing your own analysis. Is that
And
a
I,
fair?
I think, I mean, I'll let Mark answer after, but I think that's a valid concern with any technology. But as I said, the people who distinguish themselves, who use the tool as opposed to being a captive of the tool, are the ones who will rise to the surface.
Mhm. Mark, you wanted to
Let
say
me give you
something?
as a for example, Photoshop, photographs. There are people who use Photoshop on photographs, and you know the picture has been photoshopped. Derisively, we used to call them mouse jockeys because they're just using the software to do things that they've seen other people do, whether or not it applies to the thing that they're actually working on.
Mhm.
And then there are digital artists who will work on a similar picture, and you will have no idea that it was touched by an image editing tool. The kind of person who gets to the stage of being a skilled craftsman is not the person who takes the shortcuts. And as a consequence, there will always be master practitioners, and there will be people who produce ordinary work. And I don't think that AI, or any tool for that matter, is going to create a major difference in that regime.
Yeah.
They'll just get faster at it.
I want to go back to a subject we started 10, 15 minutes ago before we took the break, perhaps more than that. And I think Mark responded. I do remember Nigel responding in any fulsome kind of way of how do we embrace this thing in the Caribbean and make it work for us, given our stage of development or underdevelopment, if you like. That is sometimes more applicable than even underdevelopment. How do we get hold of this thing and make it work for us? In all kinds of ways, in business, in reporting, in every way, that in education, not in politics. Those people can't help themselves. Nobody could help them. So forget that part.
No, but I think you're already using it. I mean, Mark gave you his examples. I gave you my examples. I believe that it helps with research. A student who is researching a topic to write on an essay has access to a ton load of data that they can then pull together and craft a response. And to the extent that they can take the raw data and come up with insights and new perspectives, this is what you want. Somebody in the tourism industry who is looking for customers has ways to reach a whole set of customers. To the Haddad boys and their what they call it, Azerite and what they have done with Grand Riviere. They now can advertise that across the globe. The Caroni Swamp, they can attract visitors from wherever. So there are, again, remember, we're dealing with various tools that give us visibility and access across the globe, and it's up to us now to use those tools, and hopefully the administration, the government can find ways to encourage us to do more of that and attract the kind of clientele we need to support our various businesses.
Mhm. Is corporate Trinidad and Tobago fully involved or aspiring to be involved in AI?
I think corporate Trinidad and Tobago is very much involved in using AI. Some of them may be a little more cautious than others, but I mean, you call up an organization today, and I think the first interaction you have is with an AI that then hands you off to a human if it cannot discern exactly what your problem is. And that is going to happen more and more. And as I said, in the boardroom, in some cases, not all, the recordings are being used to help provide the transcripts for the production of minutes and the documentation of decisions. So,
As with all corporations and individuals too, does it make financial sense?
of course, it does.
In what ways? Give our viewers, listeners,
So
an appreciation.
one of the metrics that people are looking at today, in a world of artificial intelligence, is revenue per employee, and the idea there is to drive to reduce the number of people required to generate the revenues you're generating, and you're going to see more of that. Using AI to help with processing so that a lot of the drudgery work, as Mark referred to it, is handed off to the computer. Again, you need to be careful. You need to be very deliberate in how you develop these processes, and always be aware and have controls in place to ensure that if errors occur, they are caught before any serious damage is done.
Yeah.
But it's going to continue. We are at
What
early
are-
stages, and the technology is getting better and better every day.
What of ethical concerns, Mark, that people have about using AI, using technology in a generalized kind of way? Is there sufficient of a matching of those ethical concerns with the advancement that Nigel has talked about, owners and corporations and so on, looking to reduce their expenditure and increase their bottom line before. Is there sufficient of an ethical spreadsheet, to use a term of the business world, to guard against, ethical inconsideration?
I would prefer that Nigel handle matters of corporate ethical considerations,
The
because
man threw that in your lap. boy.
but in my experience, in my small humble experience, I quote Peter Drucker:
Right.
"The business of business is business. It is not people, it is business. And whatever drives business and drives profitability is what the business will do."
But
So-
from where I sit, Mark, business is about creating value. And of course, every time you say create value, you have two questions to ask: of value to whom and for what? And business is about customers, and business are about employees. And you need to be mindful of the impact you have on both, and it cannot be a short-term consideration. So that I may not need as many employees as I did before, but the employees I have to work with, I have to treat them with respect, I have to compensate them fairly, and I have to ensure that however I operate in a very honest, a very transparent way. So from an ethical point of view, the question is not here about humanity versus machine, but about how we work together to deliver the value we have to deliver, and to capture enough of that value to sustain the organization.
Yeah, Nigel, you come over as I'm listening to you and I'm saying, I wonder if there are people in the corporate world who think like Nigel, or is he
Well,
just passing?
I
Or is
work
he
with them
just
all.
passing this thing off on us?
No, no, no.
You know,
I work with them all the time, and to the extent, and I tell them, to the extent you're into the short term, you're not going to be around for long.
there are
So,
people considerations outside there to be met.
yes.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying, let me be very clear. I'm not saying I'm a mamby-pamby kind of person. You know. I want people in my organizations who are committed as I am to delivering that value. And to the extent that they are engaged and passionate about that, we can work together. And I love what I do. I love working. I mean, I'll be very clear. My wife tells me all the time. But the point is, I want people around me like that who like to work, and we will compensate. I will compensate fairly. To the extent that I don't, I will not attract the best.
You sound like a rabid capitalist with something of a soul. I ain't too sure how big it is.
I don't know how rabid I am, but I think I do have a soul, and I am a capitalist.
Mark Lyndersay, my friend, you're kind of close. Sorry, we're coming to the end, so let's get some closing comments from both of you, and put it into the context of looking ahead. Okay, I've been provocative and so on, but I am absolutely in for the benefits of the technology. My concern is it's about ethics and about um, the larger countries able to deal with this thing much better than the developing world and the underdeveloped world who haven't even started at the barrier just yet. So your closing comments, both of you.
Well, for me, again, thank you for the opportunity to join you in this conversation. Again, we cannot stop the march of technology. We either work with it, or it's going to run over us. And I prefer to work with the technology, and to find ways to extract value from it, so that we can create value for our communities, for our customers, for our employees. And to the extent that government can help, great. But I don't think we can wait on government. But again, embrace it, get into it, use it responsibly, use it transparently and honestly. So for me, I love what it allows me to do.
I should have asked before or wondered aloud, how is it being utilized at the University of the West Indies and the UTT in our condition? I know the doctor, what's his name, Ali, who I was invited, but he had to be away, etc., etc., teaches there. But I wonder if any one of you know anything about it. I have not been close with the university for a few decades now, but is it being used at all in the university? Mark, do you know
I'm not
anything?
aware.
I couldn't say.
No, I don't know.
No. Okay. Yeah. So, Mark, your wind-up comments.
I think about where we are right now. And I remember your earlier comments about Sir Charles being able to fold a whole radio station up into a computer system
His
and
laptop.
operate on his own and so on. And I think this is a kind of encapsulation of the kind of thing that we face, particularly, and this is one of my big concerns, particularly with media. Because even though Sir Charles has his operation going there, media is a people business. So there's Sir Charles off in the corner there quietly, but there's three of us going on and on and on for almost 2 hours here. And people are not tuning in for the technology. They're tuning in because of the conversations that people are having and to the extent that it has an impact on their lives. But the engineering that surrounds all of this is not favorable to the media experience. Technology companies really have no time for this idea of human craftsmanship. They want to engineer a platform, they want to engineer an algorithm, they want to set it out into the world, and they want to make money from it. And to that extent, they're not even really interested in the people. They're interested in what the people do. Whereas our focus as media people has always been, what is the impact of the human presence in our world? How is it changing on our world? How is it helping us? How is it causing problems? What can we do? All the questions you've been asking all the way through this, and Mr. Fraser. All the questions you've been asking all the way through this have really been emblematic of the core idea of what journalism is and what media is supposed to be about. So, I look at this and I think, wow, okay, you all are doing this great. I agree to come on. It's a little more than I expected it would be. But it exists, and you've called it into being. And I think all of the things that need to happen are probably going to need to be called into being by people who decide, okay, I cannot change everything, but I can change this one thing using these tools.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I am sure this is a kind of first chapter in our exploration of this subject matter, because I'm sure there's much more to be said. And so we are glad that you've come on this station to open the discussion here. I'm sure it has been taken up elsewhere, but that you've come here to do this on a radio station that is seeking to make its way in the world. And we have to, I always tell Charlo that, he is bitten off quite a lot there. He has invited me to come back in a ways that I really thought that my days were long gone for that kind of thing. I write my columns, I read my books, and I feel satisfied. But the man pulled me out, Charlo. So what will tell you,
Yeah.
So thanks again.
Just as Nigel said, you see, we have the tools and we provide the technology, but there are some aspects of it that that you have and you possess, and people still need to hear.
Okay.
Yep.
I take that. I know if it's a mama guy, but I take that.
It's a mama guy.
No, it can't be.
Thank you very much, Charlo, and our guests Nigel and Mark. Thank you very much, Mark Lyndersay and Nigel Romano. And we are sure to call upon you at some other point in time. I'm sure that we can't pay you for your time, but we will ask nevertheless.
Thank
Charlo,
you very
over
much.
to you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Right here on the local scene, changes we have seen them all. What a journey it has been, with our back against the wall. Remember the works of Lockjoint and Sampy at the time when money was no problem, and the drinks in tongue was whiskey and brandy. That was when the Black Power caused big mayhem. We saw an island rise up just so from out in the ocean. But that is joke, I want you to know. In time to come, an African will win Mastana Baha. In time to come, Trinbago will have a woman prime minister. In time to come, Kitchener's son will come here and start to sing. In time to come, who knows, he might become the next road match king. Indians and Africans will unite, and there will be no more racial fights. All of them drug pushers will cool down, and Dan Ratzing will hang up his gun. Sandy Grande will be a city, UNC will win in Lavanti, and they one day will stop drinking rum.
Time to come. Time to
NETT
come.
taking you
Time to come.
Crazy! Great! Let me do something for mankind. Since the beginning of time, man has never found himself caught up in a web of crime. He put his soul on the shelf, and we saw all his wickedness manifesting. Furthermore, in perversion he did wallow. Then we saw his intelligence disappearing, and therefore how lower his morals could go. But in the future, tomorrow's era, and the hereafter, mankind will have to do better. In time to come, all religions will get together and pray.
In time to come.
When it is getting closer to Judgment Day,
In time to come.
the Messiah will come and peace will prevail.
In time to come.
King Lucifer